Welcome to this special edition of Keeping It Real. Panel discussions with entrepreneurs and enterprise leaders who have shared their business stories in our guest blog and join us on topics trending in business. This month, our guests are powerhouse entrepreneurs and savvy connectors who believe in building a network. They've encouraged a following, created opportunities, and continue to foster win-win relationships. Our topic is community impact, building a network. Each of our guests will share their experience on the importance of networking and building a community that creates new opportunities. And I'd like to introduce you to our panel. Debbie Van Camp joins us from Calgary, Alberta, and is co-owner of the Connected Business Women's Network in Alberta with over 1,500 members. Sabrina Victoria is the Queen of Time from Boca Raton, Florida, who has built a 5-figure network of individuals interested in becoming a better version of themselves through Human Better 365. And Jeffrey Feldberg is from Toronto, Ontario, co-founder of Deep Wealth, an organization that helps you reach your full potential when selling your business. Welcome, everybody.
Hey, so good to be here, Trish. Thanks so much.
Yes. You know what I really love is that I'm sure, like you, we've all been reading these articles and various different publications about the power of networking. And we all know that we've now been able to develop these international networking opportunities because, you know, we've got all these global folks in our network and we're being introduced to new people every day. So I'm going to ask Sabrina, you've got this powerhouse collective with various different groups of people. Was it something that sort of organically happened, or did you actually set out to start building some of these wonderful groups?
I'm going to be totally honest. I'm going to say organic. It was not something that I set out day one planning. However, I do incorporate it into my story as far as the importance of networking, the importance of collaborating now more than ever. I think community is the catalyst for any company, brand, entrepreneur ever in the world.
Yeah, I totally agree. And now your network is now global, correct? I mean, yeah. It started off probably being very local and regional, and now you've gone kind of worldwide, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And how do you attract some of these people in the global community?
You know, it's funny because people ask, how did you start this? What happened? And honestly, I just started dropping cold into DMs. I mean, some of the, you know, the ride or dies that are by my side now, I've never met them. And I literally dropped cold into their direct messages, just asking like, hey, do you want to be a part of this thing that I'm building? I don't even know what it is. And granted, 50% of them were like, you're crazy. And the other 50% were like, yeah, what, where, tell me all the things, and jumping on calls. Right. And it's been so interesting, their perspective on like watching, right? Because when I first started talking, there's all this big vision, big things. And I'm sure on the inside, they were kind of like, cool. But now, you know, I talk to them and they're still on my panels. They still come to the events. We're doing a 16-hour conference next Saturday. And they're literally like, I can't even believe what this has become. And right. They're really starting to see the vision, which is cool.
Right. Now, Debbie, your group is actually sort of centered on the province of Alberta, right? I mean, you've got a group in Calgary, you've got a group in Edmonton. And do you find that within the women in those two different cities, because they're quite, you know, a distance apart geographically, are you finding that they're collaborating?
I find that it's interesting because, I mean, the highway between Calgary and Edmonton, for those who don't know Alberta, it's about a 3-hour drive. Mm-hmm. But we don't find that that highway is driven for CBWN. We also find that the groups are very different. So in Edmonton, they like to have an evening social, and there's a lot of competition in that market. We are all live events. We did go Zoom We had to pivot like everyone else. But we found that after in-person was allowed again, people didn't really have that craving to be online anymore.
Right.
And so there's lots of great groups that they still attend online. And Calgary is different. We have a very unique group that meets at lunch. It's about 2.5 hours. And it's incredible how different the cities are. It's almost comparable to, say, if I may, like Ottawa and Toronto, right? Like it's, Edmonton is very government. It's quite different. So yeah, it's been fun. We've been in Edmonton for 6 years and we've been in Calgary for 14. So
wow. So the group obviously started in Calgary. Now, Jeffrey, you've got a really unique situation because folks come to you when they're getting ready to sell their businesses, right? So clearly a network becomes really important because you're trying to find buyers for folks or help folks come up with the right formula for selling their business. So when you're building your network, do you find that you have just as many people who are, quite happy to continue to expand and grow? Or are they only coming to you when they're looking to sort of make that transition to something new?
Tricia, it's a great question. What we're really proud of with we call it all these fancy terms, the Deep Wealth 9-step roadmap, it's for business owners, they're doing double duty. We help them grow the business. And at the same time, they're preparing for a future exit, or as we call liquidity event. So, and a lot of the times they don't even know that they're preparing for the liquidity event. So when they show up, when they're ready to sell, they've done really two things. Number one, they've grown the business. So they're now bigger, they're more valuable, they're more profitable from the 9-step roadmap, from the strategies. And because they're prepared, they won't be a statistic. Up to 90% of liquidity events fail.
Right.
And of the quote unquote successful ones, business owners are leaving 50% to over 100% in the buyer's pocket and don't even know it.
Right. So do you find that it's within their network that they actually sell their business? Or is it an introduction, so that you sort of put the word out there and then it's an introduction from somebody else?
As business owners, we get a lot of things right. There's two, I'll call it fatal mistakes or myths that we buy into. And the first one is the skills that built the business are the same ones to sell it. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
How do you master something you've never done before? And the second myth is business owners. And hey, I was there the first time with my company when I said no to the 7-figure offer and then developed the system and said yes a few years later to a 9-figure offer. It's not our responsibility as business owners to know who the buyer is going to be. And if we say, well, it's going to be the competition, not necessarily. And that's why step 6, advisory team, we really recommend you find an investment banker. They're going to cast a very wide net, not just any investment banker, a very special type, an advocate of an investment banker.
Right.
And more times than not, we don't know who the buyer is. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. And so that's is actually an extension of the network, right? Because you need to network within another network in order to, be able to sell your business from your point of view. But, in terms of and I'll leave the floor open to whomever wants to discuss this, but how often do you find, we've all got inboxes that are like, just going crazy with emails, right? Like too many newsletters, too many, and I just wish I had all the time to sit with a cup of tea or a glass of wine or whatever at the end of the day and read everything. So how do we communicate with all of these people in these wonderful networks and make it valid? Has anyone come up with a secret formula? I'll leave it open to the floor. I mean, has anyone got a way that you can connect with the people in these wonderful, we build the network, but then how do we communicate with them?
I'll throw something out there. Yeah, we developed a very high-tech, high-end kind of system, and nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Not really. It's old school. The best way that we found anyways for us to grow the network is really one person at a time. Hey, what's your problem? How can I help you? What's keeping you up at nights? Maybe I know someone who can help you directly, or maybe I know someone who knows someone that can help you, or maybe I can figure out how to help you. And it's really one person at a time. We don't believe in, mass marketing, throwing yourself out there and they don't really know you. And we also don't believe, just to, throw another myth out to pasture, I don't believe any person is self-made. There is no self-made. person. It's a community around us that really does. And my success isn't from me. It's from the people. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, people,
Right.
mentors, and other people who just went out of their way to help. And so for us, it's how can we help you? How can we solve enough people's problems that over time, eventually we can get what we want because people are getting what they want.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Sabrina? I mean, you've got people globally. So, I mean, that's a challenge. How do you communicate with folks within your network that's meaningful to them?
Yeah. As far as the email box, I have learned to set boundaries around things. And one of the first things that I do when I jump onto calls is just let individuals know, like, if you're going to take my email address that I signed up with this calendar link, that's fine. But I might not stay subscribed. So I do say that just because there was this guilt that I would feel all the time when I hit unsubscribe, because there's just so many.
Right.
But I do a lot what was just said as far as doing one-on-ones. I mean, every single person that drops into my group, I run my group on Facebook, gets a direct message from me. I do my best to get onto a one-on-one phone call with each and every one of them. However, I take it even a step further, and I run events, panels, conferences virtually continuously throughout the year. And this allows us to be able to jump on to consistent calls, just like what Trish is doing here, where you can really dive deep into what each person is doing. So you're networking, you're collaborating, you're getting to know, you're building community all at the very same time while we're each building our business. So we're all showing up as an authority while we're also learning about each other. And it really helps this expansion idea of, which is the exact analogy I give, standing on each other. So really building what I see as a structure or a foundation or a pyramid of individuals who are voicing what they do and then allowing people to connect with them as we go along.
No, Debbie, in your case, you've got these wonderful ladies who are meeting in person. So you're not doing as many virtual things as you were in the past. So do you do some kind of follow-up with everyone after the event? Because clearly you want to keep everybody engaged, and those who couldn't attend, do you do anything in terms of a newsletter format or an email blast? How do you communicate with your members?
Yeah, so there's a number of ways. You know, we do kind of have a bi-weekly newsletter that we do, and we do it. Originally, we did it in 2 cities, and then we collaborated and did one, and then again, Edmonton is quite different from Calgary. So they're like, well, we don't want to know about Calgary events. Just focus on ourselves. So they're in their own little world. So now we've split it out again, but you know, we do that bi-weekly and keep them connected. We put articles. We don't have per se a membership. But we do have what we call a loyalty program, which is a savings program. So anyone can come to our meetings anytime throughout the year. But we do follow up with the newbies, and we do have a referral program. Oh, cool. So that's really, in 14 years, we started with 27 people. And now, like you said, we have about 1,500 in our database. Right. So, and all of those people can come when they're available. It's not my schedule. And then again, we follow up with them on a regular basis. If we haven't seen people, because we really feel that the strength of our group is coming on a regular basis. Sure. Because we all know it's about know, like, trust. Right. And if you come to a meeting 2 times a year and you're like, no one's talking to me, no one's engaging me, no one's using my real estate service, it's because
they don't know you.
It knows you.
Right. Exactly.
So, that's the thread that weaves through, and our membership has, our participants have been really great in that we typically have 75-25. So 75% of the people at each luncheon are regulars. Right. And then 25% is new. So it's a great churn. It's always a new churn of people. Right. So we love that. And we do engage them. And if we haven't seen them in a while, we do reach out and say, where you been? Right. And our most successful stories are people who have branched out The first time they've ever spoken is at one of our meetings, which is a safe environment. We say we put the net in networking, and it's a soft place for people to land. It's non-judgmental, it's safe. But some people just can't come anymore because they're so busy.
Right. Well, that's a good problem to have. Now, you mentioned something really important, and that is, and I'm going to ask Jeffrey specifically because, you know, every single one of you here is a savvy connector. So you've either connected myself with somebody in your network that you think would be great for the Share Your Stories platform. But I'm going to ask, how do we reciprocate? Like, how do you reciprocate within the collective? Because it's really wonderful to meet these people and wonderful to say, okay, you know, I'm going to collaborate with someone in a different city. But how does the person who runs the organization, what fills your bucket, right? So Jeffrey, how do you get people to provide referrals to you? Is there a certain mode of communication that you prefer? Or is it just random and happens organically?
It's a little bit of both but there is a method to the madness because, as everyone's been pointing out, the challenge is everyone is so busy, and you can have a great connection with someone on that one day. They really like what you're doing, but out of sight, out of mind, and they forget about you.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the beginning for a moment. For most people in their community, in their organization, I mean, who doesn't want to help somebody? Of course we do. We want to. That's how most of us are wired. And so from that perspective, the challenge is, well, how do I cement myself in a particular space? So when someone who I just met is speaking to a business owner who wants to grow the business or at one point sell it, oh, you know, Jeffrey, you should speak to Jeffrey. Let me introduce you.
Right.
And so that's done through a number of ways. Again, old school, reaching out. Hey, Jeffrey, how you doing? Haven't spoken to you in a while. Let's catch up. We also happen to do a weekly email that goes out, and we take some of the research out of the marketplace and just give our spin on it. So we're in front of them that way. We also have a podcast, a Deep Wealth podcast that goes out twice a week. And so we encourage people to subscribe. So it's really, you know, you can have the best solution in the world, but if people don't remember you,
yeah, that's right,
then they're not going to be beating the path to your door. So part of it really is, okay, how do I provide value? Because on the one extreme, you're not doing enough. On the other extreme, we've all been there. You get 30 emails and it's like, oh my God, you know, it's a little bit too much. It's finding that balance of providing value in every interaction and just enough of them, because studies show it's always changing, but you know, somewhere between 7 to 12 outreaches before someone really starts to remember, recognize, and say, okay, for this particular area, it's so-and-so.
That's the expert. Now, Sabrina, you've done some wonderful, wonderful things in terms of follow-up, because I've been on your podcast, you've been on mine, and I actually got a few really great tips from you on using that sort of Calendly app or whatever calendar app that you're using that will send out messages following your discussion, which I think is really great. But I'm going to ask, do you have a VA, a virtual assistant, somebody who helps you out, or are you like me and sort of the chief cook and bottle washer? Like, you know, how do you manage your time in addition to being able to service your client?
Yeah, at the moment, I have one woman who works for me about 10 to 15 hours. My podcast and my audio, my video, and all of that is taken care of by somebody. But all of the interactions, all of the networking, all of the setting up, all of the front end of the podcasting, my clients, my masterminds, everything is solely done by me at the moment. And I am at that cusp, right? We all hit that cusp of like, we need to let go of the control, but like, it's our baby. So I'm right there at that cusp right now, literally. But as far as what Jeffrey was saying, as far as, what was the question that you had originally asked? Because I had something to say to that.
About to Jeffrey?
Not to Jeffrey, but what was the question you asked to Jeffrey?
Oh, it was about how do you make a connection that's valuable between the person that is referring and you as the business owner.
Yes, thank you. So to add on to what Jeffrey already said, because it's brilliant. I try my best to continue to bring people back towards me. So what you were talking about as far as the emails go, everything that I do is me bringing them back. So, and not bringing them back to make a sale, but bringing them back to remind them of who I am. And it's not, I don't send emails like to tell a story. I send emails asking them to participate with me in something. So a continuous lineage of, you know, more of what else can I do for you? What else can I do for, what else can I do for you? So I work in the mindset of give, take. So with everything, give, get is actually what I say, give, get. So GG, what can I give you? And then what can I get from you? So every single time I'm on the phone call with somebody, with anybody, I'm always searching in my mind of what can I give to this person with an automatic knowing that when I give them something, there will be that karma effect automatically, because we're humans, of them realizing that they need to give me something.
Right.
So it doesn't always work, right? Where it's a 75% chance. And then there's also another percent chance that they won't follow up with what they said they're actually going to follow up with. But about 50% of the individuals that I communicate with on that basis, there is a give get. And the way that I work my email as far as it filling up quickly is I don't have any pressure on myself to do anything because the pipeline is endless. So it's my job as an entrepreneur to fill my pipeline. It's nobody else's job. So it doesn't matter how long it takes me to get to an email. I just need to make sure that it's full. And I think that that is the number one step with any entrepreneur who's on the basis of like, they have to create their own income, is like the pressure of getting back to everybody is not a thing in my head. My pressure is, are there emails dropping in that are potential clients?
Oh, that's a really good point, because, you know, one of the things that we do when we go to networking events, whether they're virtual or in person, and so whether we're handing out business cards or we're making one-to-one meetings after the event, the connection is what's really important, right? Because, you know, we're all in business in one way, shape, or form. We all have to put food on the table and a roof over our head. So if we can help each other, I love the idea of the karma, you know, and the serendipity, right? Because if you help me, then I'll help you. I mean, I think that's a really valid point. And that's probably what Jeffrey was talking about. You know, he was saying we all stand on the shoulders of other folks who have been before us, which is really all about the legacy, you know, of what we're doing in terms of business, which I think is really important. And, you know, one of the things that I think it was Jeffrey that mentioned was talking about mentorship. And one of the questions I'm going to ask is, do you think that in today's day and age, with the various different ways in which we try to connect with people, do you think that there's mentorship in entrepreneurship? Is there a valid place for mentorship in entrepreneurship?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I'll just jump in there. And to me, entrepreneurship is mentorship. The two are really inseparable. And again, I'll look to myself. I mean, I, as a kid, got right out of school and started my business out of my parents' attic, had no idea what I was doing. And it was really from the kindness of strangers who took me under their wing and helped along the way. And I, in turn, pay that forward and continue to do that because, again, how do you master something you've never done before? And so for me, an entrepreneur, broadly speaking, business owner, founder, it's how do you find painful problems that you can solve for other people? But under that umbrella is also people themselves. And it could be a stranger. It could even be a client. It could be someone on our team. And it doesn't, for me, it doesn't necessarily have to be just what I do and business related. It's life mentorship as well, because, you know, personal and business to me, I don't, they're integrated. Whoever said business isn't personal never had a business before. So mentorship for me is a huge part of the entrepreneur way of life and doing things.
Anyone else want to comment on their individual networks? Yeah, Debbie?
I think it's really important because the ladies in our room, you know, they have the experience. I think we have a responsibility to our younger generation. You know, times are changing. We're all learning together, but you know, it's kind of learn from what the road I've taken. And I think parents are very much like that too. They want the kids to take a better road or not make the same mistakes. And I'm very involved here with the Haskayne Business School, and they have an entrepreneurship class, and they always do pitches and stuff. And I just love seeing those fresh faces and their ideas. And, you know, we just had a pitch session last week, and they're just like sponges. I mean, you know, they would listen, they want to learn, and it's just motivates, you know, my generation for sure. It's not keeping it a secret. I think it's our responsibility to at least give them the information.
Right, right. What about you, Sabrina? Well, how do you feel about the whole idea of mentorship and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, my whole business is built
on it. Yeah,
it's built on one saying, and the saying is, you know something that I don't know, and I also know something that you don't know. And the only way for us to really rise as a culture, rise as females, is for us to get into the room and for us to share our knowings. And as we kind of fill those holes, is kind of my visual that I have of those unknowings that we have, we can all rise in our understanding of culture, of society, of relationships, of health. And so, yeah, I'm always in the mindset of, even when I'm here, I'm writing notes. I'm like constantly learning. I'm constantly putting myself in the seat of a student.
So I'm going to ask each of you, do you feel that there's a leadership quality that has now become more important than ever in terms of our ongoing business success? Because we all know that, you know, having the asking for help is one part of the equation. Asking for business or asking for the sale is another part. But what leadership quality do you feel that we all need to share or exemplify within our networks in order to be successful? Sabrina?
I'm kind of doing mine out of curiosity, and I'm sure I'm not the only person that has ever done this, but I run my leadership in the form of we. So everything that I do and every time that I'm speaking about the community that we are building, I take myself as, yes, the voice or maybe the face, but it isn't me. And I know Jeffrey kind of said something similar, like, this is not about me, this is about us.
Right. That's a really wonderful point. What about you, Debbie? How what leadership quality do you feel we need to demonstrate?
I totally agree with Sabrina. I mean, one of the things I had written down was selflessness and passion. I mean, you can't bottle that, but it's just a natural thing that, you know, to be passionate about something and also to lead by example. It is really what I think leadership is.
You know, that's such a wonderful point, because one of the things that I do when I'm talking about mentorship to folks is I say there's 3 different kinds of mentors, right? And one of them is just seeing and experiencing someone else in your community that you may feel that you'd like to exemplify at some point in time, right? I mean, it's making that human connection. I mean, and Sabrina's business is all about making a human connection. And I don't think that Debbie's or Jeffrey's is any different. Like, we're all trying to make really valid human connections. So Jeffrey, what leadership quality do you feel that we need to exemplify moving forward?
Yeah, you know, being the last one here, I have some big shoes to fill, some great answers given. But what I'm going to pivot to, which to me really weaves everything together, because I'll just use the analogy: if as leaders we can't really help mentor or be our best for other people if we're not looking after ourselves, and so for that, I'm going to use the word focus. Because today, more than ever, and you know, don't get me on this diatribe, you know, on the soapbox. Look, the challenge today is we have very sophisticated and smart AI algorithms that are all vying for our attention. I'm not going to name the different apps out there. You know who they are, and they all vie for our attention. They're really divisive with society and what they're doing. But putting all that aside, I can't be a leader if I'm distracted. If my focus is being stolen, and a great book, Stolen Focus, you can read all about that and what's going on behind the scenes. So for me, as you know, as I think about this question, and as a leader, it's my responsibility, it's my duty to really ensure that my focus isn't being robbed by different distractions. And if you're taking away those algorithms from AI and these different social platforms, even putting the phone on mute
Silent.
and,
Yeah.
having do not disturb kind of time. And, another great resource out there, Cal Newport and deep work with deep thinking, no relation to deep wealth. But all that said, I challenge myself as a leader. Okay, Jeffrey, how can you really get the thoughts and the creative and all the heavy mental lifting in without distraction so you can be of value to your community and to the people that you're serving?
And in general, I'm going to throw this out there. How many of you feel that your individual communities contribute to your business success? In terms of a percentage, is it, I've heard, 75-25, we all go by the 80-20 rule. We've heard some great statistics that, 7 to 12 connections before we're actually going to be able to have a one-to-one. So in terms of your ongoing business success, do you feel that your specific community, building the community and the social impact that you're having on that community, how much do they contribute to your overall business? Would it be 80-20 or is it 90-10?
I'll throw it out there. I'm going to go to the extreme. I'm going to say 100%.
Me too.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Me too.
My business isn't me. It's really the people. I'm nothing without the community. They're the ones that are going through, in our case, a 9-step roadmap. They're growing the business. They're giving feedback. Hey, this worked really well, but this didn't. What do you think? Can you help me with that? And it's only through their investment in their time, which is the most valuable resource. We only have 1,440 minutes, all of us, in a day. Yeah. So it's the community that really leads the way. That's what gets me out of bed every day. Okay, how can I help? How can I make a difference? And it's from the feedback that I'm receiving.
Yeah. Sabrina?
Yeah, I would say the same. Granted, there are businesses that could run off of not much of a community, but I do think that when you start to build a community, like have a fan club of people, people will name their fans, certain things, and then they have more of a connection to that brand. It could even be a restaurant. It could be an Amazon. It could be anything. Where people feel more of a connection because now they have a name for their group or a name for whatever it is. So, I run the way that I run my community. My community is my business. So for me, I would go with Jeffrey and say 100%.
And Debbie?
I think that was a light bulb moment for me. And I have to agree, for sure, without the community, we don't have anything.
Isn't that the truth?
They are, I always say with my business partner, we only know and we only meet so many people in our lives. Right. It's our community that has actually built the community.
Right. That's a really wonderful point. Now, one of the things that we do, you've all participated in the guest blog, you've all shared your individual business stories. And one of the things that we do is we ask for 3 words of advice in the guest blog. But on this particular panel discussion, I'm going to ask you for 1 word of advice. So for the viewing and listening audience, the folks that have, hung in there and been writing notes on all these wonderful tips that we've been providing, what would be 1 word of advice that you would provide for those who are joining us today? Sabrina?
Perseverance.
Oh, I love that one. You know what? That is so true. What is the statistic? It's always when you're at the tipping point that 90% of the people say, I can't do this anymore. And then they give up. And if they'd only hung in there the extra 10%, they would have been able to realize their goals. That's a really wonderful one. Jeffrey? I'm
going to say curiosity. Be curious. Because, it's so easy. It's just the human condition. I'm going to think about me, what's good for me. But when we're curious about other people, it takes us out of what's in this for me to, hey, how can I help this other person? Right. And that curiosity, that's where the magic happens. That's really the art side of life, the art side of business. It's a wonderful area to be in.
That's so true. And I love that you actually, Sabrina mentioned curiosity earlier on. So how wonderful that that's become your word of advice. And Debbie?
Listen.
Oh, that one's really hard for me. I'm always in there trying to talk my way out of or into things. That's a really good one, though.
I'm not saying I live by it very well, but it's a good word, and it's a one I need to learn myself.
Yeah, very, very true. Very true. Any parting comments? Does anyone want to add anything that they have found that's been really unique in building your own community and the impact that you've had with the various folks that you communicate with?
I'm always surprised at the connections. And, you know, we physically see that because we're physically in the room.
Right.
But I'm always surprised. And so is my business partner. We're like, hey, those people are collaborating. Like,
Right.
who knew? Like the collaborations that happen in our room, which is really the foundation of our room,
Sure.
is amazing. How people get together, and just the most unlikely people have partnered and gotten together, and it's really awesome to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Jeffrey?
You know, I've been sitting here and, you know, very humbled to be with such a terrific people. And as I've been listening to your stories, what's really coming to mind for, and my takeaway as well, and I'll share it with everyone as well, is, hey, be curious about what's your superpower. Every one of us has superpower. So Debbie, Sabrina, your superpower, your connectors, you found that gift, you were born with that, and you've now taken that gift to the world. And you're sharing it, and you're changing lives, and you're really making a difference. And so for all the viewers, all the listeners, hey, what's your superpower? Everyone has a superpower. And forget the imposter syndrome. You've got it. Find it, and then take it out to the world and be that change maker. You can do it. You have it. Everyone, all of us, we have it within us right now, today, ready to go.
That's so true. Sabrina?
I'm going to just focus on what this is about, which is networking. If you're not in a network, if you have not created your own community, be curious about what that would look like and how you would do that. And all it takes is just pulling the people who comment the most on your stuff and getting on a phone call with them and saying, hey, I have this idea for this thing and I don't know what it looks like, but what do you think? And you have 3 or 4 of those phone calls and create it. It could be anywhere. It could be in a chat. It could be in a Slack. It could be in a group. It could be one-on-one where you meet somewhere monthly. It could be anything. But you know, what works for you in your life and what would that look like? And that's where the fun comes in. I mean, when you're like talking to people and network with people and being able to dream big and have vision, that's where like the spark, that's where the ignite of just amazing collaborations and amazing companies come from. So I'm going to be safe for those of you listening that maybe aren't plugged in somewhere.
Get plugged in. Yeah. Get plugged in. Well, I'd like to thank Debbie, Sabrina, and Jeffrey for joining us today, because I think you shared some really awesome points. You know, it's all about making the human connection. And I love the sense of gratitude and giving back that we all have. And we certainly appreciate your commitment to storytelling and sharing your expertise when building a network while making positive contributions in your own community. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
I'm Trish Tonai, founder and host for the series. And if you're interested in your business story, visit our website at shareyourstories.online. And if you'd like to connect with one of our guests, you'll find their stories and contact information in the description portion below. In the meantime, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Business Mentorship Keepin It Real. Or if you're on the move, our podcast is found on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to meeting you next time in another episode of Keepin It Real. Thanks again, everybody.